Welcome back to Rounding the Bases Extra Innings. 4 final questions as we round the bases with the hilarious Taylor Kay Phillips. And I know everybody asks you this question, so I hate when I don't ask an original question, but I know it's not a contest. Who is funnier between you writing for John Oliver and your husband working with Stephen Colbert?
Here, I can't answer that.
I know you can't.
I simply can't answer it.
And you guys probably don't even talk about such a thing.
We would never right. In a million years. I will say that what we say is that he writes my favorite jokes and I write his favorite jokes. So we do both honestly think the other one is funnier. I think that I have told him before, it's like, I think he's a better joke writer than me, and he is befuddled by that. And then of course the real secret is, of course, we talk all the time. Like the funniest is the two of us together. That's the truth.
I can only imagine.
Is a joke that gets punched up by one person.
Well, let me just at least expand on this, because it's the better question and the better story, that how you guys met, and I mean, what a unique experience, right? Your paths crossing.
It's really wild. We met in improv class. So we were both in advertising. Felipe is the name of my husband. And he's an immigrant from Colombia. And so he, because of immigration, he can't have like a barista job, like a side hustle job. He had to have a job writing. And so he was in advertising. I was in advertising. We worked in advertising together for a while. And then he got the job at Colbert in 2019, worked there for about 4 months, and then worked in our apartment for a very long time. And then I got my job. It's a very weird story. I mean, we met wanting to do the same thing, and the fact that we're both doing it is pretty bananas. We consider ourselves incredibly lucky every day. We write for 2 really wonderful, incredible men, and 2 very different shows, but I think we're both also in the show that fits us. So we're very lucky. It's very silly. And I will say that we got married during the pandemic, and then we had like our second big wedding in Colombia. And my sister, as our maid of honor, gave a speech that started with like, when people hear Taylor and Felipe are comedy writers, they say, wow, I bet there's never a dull moment in that house. And then she opened a piece of paper and said, there have been plenty of dull moments. And then like recited a bunch of boring things that we had done.
Great.
It's one of the funniest things it's one of the funniest things that's ever happened.
Well, you said she's the funniest, so.
She's the funniest. She's the funniest. That's the funniest person in my house is my sister when she calls us.
I love it. Second question as we round the bases. You love your sports teams, and it's very evident on social media. I mentioned that during the audio version of the podcast. By the way, if you're stumbling upon this, go check out the audio version of the podcast, and you can learn everything about Taylor and her book and everything. It's great. When I see your posts on your beloved Chiefs and Royals and everything Kansas City, it's never like mean spirited. It's just kind of like that wit of a comedian. What do sports do for you?
So I say this with no I'm not saying this to butter you up. I'm not saying this just for rounding the bases.
Oh, go ahead.
Sports taught me how to write. Because when I was a kid, my dad would leave the Joe Posnanski columns on our kitchen table. And it was Joe Posnanski as a columnist for the Royals and Rick Riley in Point After and Sports Illustrated, which I read in the bathroom when I was avoiding doing the dishes after dinner. That really taught me about structuring a story and a narrative, writing about things that have already happened and the implications of them, I think is what Posnanski and Rick Riley did so well. And both of them have just this amazing ability to write a last line. Like those guys, just the way they end pieces, and the personal, like the infusion of the personal with the true and someone and everyone else being human. I think that it taught me so much about what it means to observe, what it means to watch, and what it means to tell people something that they already know a little bit about, and give them a reason to want to know more anyway. Right? It's like when you're reading about the Royals or you're reading about sports, if you're a sports fan, you kind of know for the most part, like the trajectory of the team. What am I telling you that's different? What's the story here, and how? And both Poznanski and Rick Riley, they just write with such love. Like they're clearly having fun. They're clearly doing what they love most in the world. And in my own sports writing or sports jokes, I love sports.
Yeah.
I love everything they did for me. And also I think that there are parts of sports that are really funny. I think it's really funny that we expect these men and women who are absolutely incredible at what they do and probably necessarily crazy to be as good at what they do as they are, to be able to like also speak into a microphone on camera. When like people go to school for years to be able to do that. It's other people's whole job. And it's just like, oh, you who have completely dedicated your life to one other thing, maybe also like be able to be in a commercial, which is very funny to me.
What a world. Those guys are amazing. I totally agree with you. Third question, as we round the bases, you talked in the audio version of this podcast about the Midwestern goodbye. So I want to ask you, maybe just for my own enjoyment, hopefully everybody else's too. What is the difference? How would you describe the difference between a Midwestern goodbye and a New York goodbye?
Great. So a New York goodbye goes like this. Hey, we're going to go. Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Okay. Bye, bye, bye. Text me. That's a New York goodbye. Midwestern goodbye is this. Well, this was amazing. I think we got to head out. And then the other person will be like, oh yeah, I know you've got the whatever tomorrow, because they know what they have tomorrow. It's like, yeah, we got, you know, with all this, you got to get home. But this is the best. But we got to do this more. And you know what I was telling you before, then you rehash how much fun you had. I have to break this down because if I were to actually act out the whole thing, it would take 2 hours. Right. Then you rehash how much fun you had. And then you get off on a tangent about something else because you're like, oh, I didn't tell you. You're catching up on what you were telling. And then when you leave, right as you're about to leave, you talk about how you're going to do this again, or like whether or not you're going to do this again. And then usually put the parameters on it where it's like, well, we got to do this again. Well, you know, are you going to the game, the whatever? Oh, I actually didn't know about that. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you. So then this goes on for a while about when you're next going to see each other. And then you slowly inch toward the door, right? If it's cold, the door is where it ends. If it's warm, you walk into your car, it goes another 30 minutes. And then slowly you're like, okay, we got to, and then often there's a child who's like, Mom, we got to go. And then you exit, and then the biggest one is like, okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Oh my God, bye-bye. And then the door closes, and then everyone is left alone. But the difference, I would say the big difference between a New York and a Midwestern goodbye is about an hour 30.
Yeah.
It's
so true. I won't even ask you about the difference between a Midwestern hello and a New York hello, because you already kind of covered the whole, making eye contact thing. Anyway, yeah, I just put your head down. I just put my head down when I go to New York, and talk to anybody. It's kind of like the pandemic all over again. Actually, just go. All right, walk-off question for you, because it'll pertain to the book. Favorite Midwestern phrase?
Oh gosh, it's so hard. I know that I'm supposed to prepare for this because I know that I get asked it multiple times. But my favorite ones are, there's not one favorite, but my favorite ones are where the same selection of words with a single addition of a syllable or like a word means something totally different. So like if I say, oh yeah, you betcha. Right? That means 100%. I agree exactly to the T. But if I say, you betcha, the instead of the oh yeah, the you betcha, that means I don't stop talking. I'm done. Sure, fine. I want to move on. So those are my favorites. It's the one where it's just like one word, or like, doesn't that sound fun? When you're clearly indicating to the person next to you, we're doing this, so you need to get on board right now in front of these people. Versus that does sound fun, which is I have to think of a reason why I can't go, but not being interested wouldn't be it. But I have to think of something different so that you know that it's not about you, but it is about you. It's like, oh, that does sound fun. We'll have to check that out without you.
Yeah, this is just my world.
That's it. That's
and
it.
most of our, yeah, that's right.
It's funny because it is. That's like, you know, to you, you're just like, yeah, that's just how people talk.
Yeah.
And to people on the coast, they're like, wait, what? It means something different when you say it a different way. It's like,
Yeah. Different language.
It's a different language.
Completely different language.
Yeah.
And so we got to let everybody know again, TaylorKPhillips.com, the book, A Guide to Midwestern Conversation. It'll be a great read, hysterical. And if you're in the Midwest, you'll really appreciate it. If you're on the East Coast, you might start to understand, or the West Coast, or wherever around the world, you might start to understand your Midwest friends a little bit better. We're good people. Taylor K. Phillips, thank you so much for rounding the bases. Good luck with the book. And again, hope everybody will listen to the audio version of the podcast. Thank you.
Thanks so much.